if it's around 9 o'clock and you've just tuned in and you're looking at me, I'm Babz Rawls-Ivy. That's Harry Droz. Or if you're listening to me and you're in your car and you're like, hey, who is this? This is Babz Rawls-Ivy. And the show is LoveBabz, LoveTalk. Happy Tuesday. Woo, Harry. I felt like I was in the Wizard of Oz last night.
Yeah, last
That
night and
wind,
this morning.
Harry. Woo! I was half expecting to wake up. I went outside. I looked outside to see if there was some slippers around the side of the house, in case the house landed on, a sister. I said, let me go look. Shoot. It was windy, Harry. I was like, it's windy when your paper shades are rattling. Like, I was like, darn.
Well, yeah, and I sleep with a window open.
Oh, do you? Oh, so it
Yeah.
was like ghost in your house.
Yeah, so I had to give Karen the the slightest opening. She didn't, because just a little open was like everything was being blown all over. So I just did it like a slither of opening so I can get air, but she doesn't freeze.
I know, I know it drove you nuts.
Yeah, marriage is about compromise.
Yes, and you got to make those that's why you've been married 33 years.
Yeah, I should remember this. I think it's gonna be
Uh-oh.
34 in October. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So that's a lot of years to try to keep up with.
a long time.
I'm just saying, it's all right. So yeah, it was very windy, and it's supposed to be very cold this morning, Harry.
Yeah, it's right around. The wind chill is around 0 right now.
Yeah, my son is here with his wild ass puppy. Right, he's staying for a couple of days. So he went and bought a bigger leash so he could take the dog out in the mornings while I do my show. Because he's like, I don't want to hear my mama.
Well, that dog might fly off.
Oh, with this dog, the way this, as wild as this dog is, she tried to fight the wind. She'd paw up. So
Yeah,
anyway,
we had a little power issue early this morning.
yeah, you know what? There was a lot of power outages out in Connecticut. Harry, I'm so grateful that we have not had a power outage here. But you know what I did? I bought these bulbs, Harry, a month ago that you put in that will come on if your power goes out. They're in the box. And last night, I was like, they really should have been in these lamps so they could be charging. So if the power goes out, some lights will come on. So I'm going to do that in the next couple of days, Harry. Just change out some lamps and put the bulbs in. So at least if the power goes out. And I gifted my brother a box too. You get 12 of them. And then they have the little attachments in case you want to make it like its own little, what do you call those things? Um, when you need to make a light to carry a light.
Or a torch,
Yeah, or a
lantern.
flashlight.
Oh,
When you want to make a little flashlight or something. So it has a little connector so you can carry it so you can have light. And it's plastic, so if you drop it, it won't shatter. Um, so yeah, so I'm gonna put those jokers up. Need to do that.
yeah. So I figured while the lights were off, I went to get myself some Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh God, you are still. How is it? Must be good because you're not complaining.
It's actually really good this morning. Um,
Okay. All right.
the I guess it was a different person. It was a guy, and I guess we're more attentive to what we're being told.
You better be careful. You skating on some very thin ass ice, Harry.
I know.
Some thin ass ice. You
Uh,
want that window? You want that window up a little bit in that room? You better knock it off.
the doctor's in the hostage room.
I know. I'm going to bring him on. But Harry and I, after Dr. Brown leaves, we definitely got to talk about this new show, Debris, on NBC. That Harry and I, This show is everything that Harry and I have been talking about for the last 4 years. Swear to God, full stop. But anyway, Dr. Brown, Dr. Robert Brown, the third, is a PhD. He's a medical sociologist, an educator, social justice advocate, who provides research and technical assistance services to increase understanding about the social determinants of health. And so, he's been on since we started this conversation last year. I enjoyed him so much at the beginning of COVID. And so he's coming on and we're going to unpack the economics of COVID. We're going to unpack economics, particularly for minority communities, and what that looks like through a COVID lens. He just texted me to let me know he's in the waiting room. You know what? He's a guy. What do you want? Guys have no patience. It's like, Dr. Brown, I know you in the waiting room. I see you, Dr. Brown. I know you in the waiting room. I just said to Harry, Dr. Brown text me like I don't see him. I was just talking about you before you came on. How are you this morning?
Fine. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine. You look great.
Okay, good. Good.
Is this a fancy day today?
No, just a regular day.
Okay, you look fancy.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thanks.
Because I'm not used to people dressed up. I'm used to everybody being kind of casual because we're trapped in these little boxes.
Yeah.
You can't really go anywhere. So I was like, all right.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe you'd have on a nice, Henley or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just don't ask me to stand up. Oh boy.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
I'm completely dressed.
It's all right if you wasn't, Dr. Brown. How was it gonna make you stand up?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
So so as I was telling you, and Dr. Brown is the author of Economic Stress, Harsh Truths and Keys to Empowerment. So as I was telling them, Dr. Brown, that we're doing this series where we are unpacking economic issues through a COVID lens. And so today we're going to talk about income. Are we talking about income equality? Everything about income? What are we diving into today?
Actually, income inequality. And if you don't mind, Babz, I'd like to read you something that I think would help to set the stage for our conversation this morning.
Okay.
All Americans must have the privileges of citizenship regardless of race. It requires a trained mind and a healthy body. It requires a decent home and the chance to find a job and the opportunity to escape from the clutches of poverty. Of course, people cannot contribute to the nation if they are never taught to read or write, if their bodies are stunted from hunger, if their sickness goes untended, if their life is spent in hopeless poverty just drawing a welfare check. Every citizen, black and white, should have access to the resources and services that would allow each to walk through the gates of opportunity. This was a portion of the State of the Union address given by President Lyndon Johnson in 1964. And it was really the formalizing of the Great Society, which was an effort during the 1960s under his administration in the wake of the assassination of President Kennedy to ensure that Black people, other people of color, and poor people were given access to the rights and privileges of being Americans. And to that end, we saw a number of pieces of legislation that were passed into law. The first was the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which granted citizenship or the privileges of citizenship to every American. In 1965, we saw the enactment of the 18th and 19th title of the Social Security Act of 1935, which is more commonly known as Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare obviously affords health insurance and health care services to those 65 years of age and older. Medicaid affords the same to people who are poor. The other major piece of legislation that was enacted in 1965 was the Voting Rights Act. And so the Voting Rights Act was really the death knell to Jim Crow. And it ruled unconstitutional things such as poll taxes, literacy tests, grandfather clauses, and any of a number of mechanisms of voter suppression that were meted out to Black people in the 50s and 60s. Ironically enough, as we come forward almost 6 decades later, the Supreme Court case of Shelby versus Holden of 2013 determined that significant portions of the Voting Rights Act, particularly Section 5, is no longer constitutional. And so what we've seen in that time is a resuscitation or reconstituting, if you will, of many of the voter suppression tactics. We have seen since this last election where it has become increasingly more difficult for people, especially in Black communities and other communities that are underserved, to gain access to the polls. We've seen the increase in the need to have these arcane voter ID in order to be able to vote. We've seen that polling places have either been reduced or removed altogether. And so there's been a reconstitution of many of the voter suppression tactics in this time that the Voting Rights Act of '65 was supposed to preclude. The other piece of major legislation passed into law in the 1960s actually came a week after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4th. And on April 11th, the Congress and obviously the president signed into law the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which forbade practices such as redlining, where Black communities, low-income communities would literally be targeted and not be eligible to gain access to bank loans, be given access to renting places to live and the like. And so I wanted to begin the conversation by talking briefly about the significant pieces of legislation, because they all help to reshape, if you will, the ways in which people in cities, especially Black people, brown people, and poor people, were able to gain access to jobs that paid livable wages. But one of the things that we saw was that as we are experiencing this manufacturing boom in the wake of the Second World War, which ended in August '45, of course, we saw that there was this proliferation of manufacturing concerns around the country, and Connecticut happened to be one of those. In those times, the 50s and 60s, Connecticut was known for producing forged brass, hats, munitions, shipbuilding, aircraft. And so what this did was it created an opportunity for typically displaced workers, i.e. Black, to gain access to jobs that pay livable wages. But as we began to transition from a manufacturing-based economy to a more services and information-based economy, what we found that was also occurring was this increase in the rates of inflation, but a stagnation in the rates of income. And in fact, what we also saw was that for the very first time in the modern era, incomes went flat in 1963, Babz, and they have not rebounded since. But we've seen precipitous increases in the rates of inflation. And so as we came through the period of the end of the 60s into the 70s, and certainly in the 80s, what we began to see was the diminution of those really good manufacturing jobs, which will allow people to gain access to a middle-class lifestyle. And we began to see a replacement of those jobs with more services and information-based types of work. We also began to see in the 1980s the emergence of high finance in Connecticut. And what that did was it helped to exacerbate or worsen the income gap between the haves and then the have-nots. And so as a result of that, there have been a series of ripple effects that have occurred since the end of the 70s and 60s and 70s. The other thing is that the federal minimum wage has not been a friend to the average worker. It has not been a friend to disproportionate numbers of Black people, and it's certainly not been a friend to poor people. When we think about the minimum wage now, we find that in Connecticut, it's currently $12. It's due to increase to $13 on August 1st. But the federal minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. No one could live off that.
No.
So when we speak about income pre-COVID, we're in situations where people were really struggling to survive and to make ends meet. At the time of the release of State of Urban Connecticut in April 2019, we found that in cities like Bridgeport, which happens to be the largest city in Connecticut, that city had a poverty rate of 22.1%. So that means then one out of or more than 1 out of every 5 people is living in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
This was pre-COVID. That rate has remained fairly constant. It's still around 22%. So we've heard a lot of talk in the news about the provision to the COVID-19 bill that the president wants to pass to include a $15 minimum wage. But what we know is that even at $15, Babz, people will certainly have a better quality of life, but many will still struggle. So $15 is really where we need to start. So
so Dr. Brown, how are we stuck on $15? How do we get there? Why is it 15 and not 25? And why are we, my sorority hosted a couple of years back, Delta Sigma Theta sorority hosted Conversations That Matter. And one of these conversations we had was about, we got some legislators together and we talked about in Connecticut, the minimum wage and how we are stuck on this minimum wage and how rich people are, so rich people who have businesses are so anti minimum wage, and poor people are so desperately in need of more income. Why are we here? Like, why is 15 the number and not a number that makes sense for a livable wage?
Well, just to give some context, based on the federal poverty guidelines for 2021, a family of 4 is considered to be poor if they're earning $26,400. That's 4 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it is out of step with the ways in which times have changed. And the federal poverty guidelines were actually produced by a woman by the name of Molly Orshansky, who worked for the Department of Agriculture going back to 1955. So that gives you some context as to why things have moved at such a slow pace. But it is going to be incumbent upon people on the ground at the grassroots levels to really claim the pots and to make the clarion calls so that the case can be made more forcefully about the need for a livable wage. When we talked a few weeks ago about affordable housing in this state, I was talking about the section on affordable housing in state of urban Connecticut that really proposes not just a $15 an hour minimum wage, but a housing wage in this state really requires one to make about $25 an hour.
Yeah.
So
because
we have
there's no rent here that you can comfortably pay on $15 an hour.
No. And even before we talk about that $15 an hour, I want to give you another statistic. And again, this is pre-COVID. So this is data coming from the Federal Reserve System. And they found that in a study that they conducted, 46% of the respondents could not afford a $400 emergency unless they sold something or borrowed the money. Wow. So nearly half of the respondents of this survey could not afford a $400 emergency. Now, this is pre-COVID.
Listen, I know what that's like. I've been in that situation.
Yeah, too many of us have.
Not like, years ago, like, recently, right? Like, yeah. I know what that's like to, an unforeseen, if you need tires or your car breaks down, or, all those things can put you in a perilous situation.
But it's about empowering people in communities to understand the power that they have politically, and to be able to mobilize and leverage that political power so that we're putting people in positions of leadership who are truly going to advocate on our behalf. One of the things that happened just before the assassination of Dr. King was he had begun the Poor People's Campaign.
Yes.
When we look at the work of Bishop Barber, who has extended that movement in a 21st century configuration. These are the same issues, Babz, that we have been confronting for more than half a century. And as we see what is happening in the halls of Congress, it's very clear that there is a contingent of leadership that is not interested in the plight of Black Americans. It is not interested in the plight of other people from communities of color. It is not interested in the plight of poor people. And so it is up to us to be the leaders that we seek by mobilizing, by energizing, by making strategies, and then by working to increase the kinds of policies that are going to serve the interests that are most dear to us. And so this has to be an intergenerational movement. It can't just be among those in our age cohort. It's got to be with people like us. It's got to be with the elders. It's got to be with people in generations that are much younger. But we're at a turning point now, because the numbers of people who find themselves in poverty, and I'm not just talking about people who may have experienced lifetime or intergenerational poverty, but I'm talking about a new group of people defined by some as the new poor, who may be very well credentialed and highly skilled, who simply can't find the types of work that pay livable wages. Mm-hmm. And so this has to be a drum that we continue to beat until our voices are heard, and those voices can be empowered in such a way where systemic changes can occur. There's no way that we can have these increases in rates of inflation, stagnant wages, federal minimum wages that are really laughable, and expect that people are going to be okay. That's simply not realistic. So
COVID sort of really showed the vulnerabilities of what this minimum wage is and isn't, and what it can and cannot do for people, because we've seen people who have never gone this long without a job, never been not been able to pay their rent or other bills that keep them enjoying a life, and so we are starting now, I think, Dr. Brown, to have these real conversations about what poverty really looks like.
But Babz, we've been having these conversations for generations, and
well, we have, but white folks are having these experiences that we've known for generations. Now we're starting to see white folks who have never had this experience have these experiences. So I think that's the difference.
Well, that's a part of the difference, but I also think that because of the economic crisis that has resulted from the pandemic, it has ensnared so many more people mm-hmm. than I think that we might have anticipated. And to your point, I think that will help to create or increase the momentum around this issue that we have been responsible for largely for so many generations. And I should also say, I would be remiss if I didn't note the transition of one of our giants, Vernon Jordan, yesterday.
Oh, Vernon passed?
He did.
Oh my gosh. I enjoy seeing him on Martha's Vineyard every year.
Yeah. And
one of my favorite people.
Yeah, he is one of our giants. And it was Mr. Jordan who wrote the first State of Black America for the National Urban League in 1976. And if you read that document, and it is, the State of Urban Connecticut is in fact based on that seminal work. But if you read his original State of Black America in 1976, if you were to remove the date of that report, Babz, it would be as if you're reading something that was written yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's really a tragedy. We have certainly made advancements, yes, but there are so many in our community that are struggling needlessly, and who may not know where to go for help, who may not know how to articulate the ways in which poverty can not only affect the pocketbook, but how it can affect the mind, the body, and the spirit. And one of the terms that we use in academic circles is what is called weathering, where you have been exposed to this economic stress for so long that it not only takes a toll on your body, but it takes a toll on you physiologically, spiritually, as well as financially. And when I think about the passing of Mr. Jordan, we have to continue his work. we are charged with continuing his work so that we help make things better for the next generation. But we also have to remember the lessons that he has left us. And so it's an opportunity, I think, for us to continue to push and to fight, because even as we speak, we see that there are some among us, particularly in the Deep South, who are working to increase the impact of voter suppression for the upcoming election next year, for the midterms, and certainly for the 24 national election. So we too must mobilize in effective and strategic ways so that we can ensure that everyone who has the right to vote gets access to those polls.
I mean, mobilization has never been our issue. I mean, we are some of the most mobilizing people on the planet, and Black women specifically around get out the vote. I mean, it has been on the backs of Black women since the very beginning of getting out the, I mean, you know, flipping Virginia, flipping Georgia, and somewhat Arizona. I mean, you know what I mean? Like all of this. And it's a long game. Like it wasn't like, this was a 10-year game plan. So this wasn't like, let's just do this the next election. This has been a long range game. And that can, you know, change takes a long time, Dr. Brown, and people get frustrated with the amount of time that it takes to change policy, change hearts and minds. I mean, it's a long process.
I would argue, though, that we're out of time now. We're out of time. And we need to do it now.
And if we don't do it, what happens? Like, what's the worst case scenario?
Well, if we don't do it now, we will continue to see a nation that is not for us, but more against us. And I think that for many in the Black community, as diverse and heterogeneous as it is, you know, we love this country. We always have loved this country, but it hasn't loved us back. And now is the time to write that. Now is the time to address it. So as I said before, I'm very encouraged by what I'm seeing from some young people and their tenacity and their energy. And we need to mobilize that. We need to channel it. But we also need to ensure that we are working in as collaborative a fashion as possible. And this is why when I think about the people in Mr. Jordan's generation and what they were able to accomplish, it was through hard work, through tenacity, through perseverance, through determination, through being informed, through agitating, but it also was inclusive, which means that it was the coming together of multiple generations. And I think that is one of the ways that we can leverage our inherent power and agency for the long haul. Because we're in a place now where in not too long a time, you know, the United States of America will be composed primarily of people of color. And this is in large part why we're seeing the levels of urgency that are working to thwart the progress that we have made over the last half century. And I think that if we could get to a place of inclusiveness for all, to say that one group has something or is able to acquire something doesn't mean that another group has to suffer. And I think, again, we have always worked from this perspective of scarcity rather than abundance. And so now is the time to continue to do the work of the foremothers and forefathers, also the people in this time. When I see the numbers of young people across campuses, it's very encouraging, I think, to know that they are deeply committed to these efforts, and they are dialed in, because let me tell you something, they're on the front lines, as you know, Babz, of this economic pain. We have told them what they need to do to get access to the so-called American dream. They've done that, and many of them have been slapped because of it. And so it isn't just the economic pain among older generations, it's the economic pain among younger generations. So we have a deep and moral obligation, I believe, to do all that we can while we can to ensure that this America is indeed a place of empowerment, freedom, safety, and the ability to live life to the fullest for all rather than just a few.
Okay. So how do we do that? What do we have to do?
Well, I just talked about it. I mean, we've got to continue to mobilize different groups. We've got to, and we have to understand the issues. We have to understand the issues, and we have to be able to look down the road and around the corner. We can't just be in the present.
Okay.
And as an example of that, I look at some of the ways in which the cities have been revitalized, and I use the word revitalization as opposed to gentrification, because the underbelly of gentrification is economic and social dislocation.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the revitalization of cities, as we both know, Babz, that doesn't just happen. That is the result of years, decades even, of planning and effort. And as we are looking at issues that affect us today, we also have to look down the road to see what the issues are likely to be tomorrow. And in so doing, that affords us the ability to plan far more effectively and strategically.
So
And
are
I
you
think,
feeling hopeful about this Biden-Harris administration? I mean, is that a step in the right direction? I mean, because, we've got a pandemic, right? And which, that is, that takes over everything. Like everything is about getting these vaccinations, getting more vaccinations, getting them into the hardest, to the most neediest of communities. I mean, that is just a time-consuming process. And then you've got so many people who are out of work, right? And don't know if they're going to go back to work. So we have that to contend with. And people are unemployed and trying to get the unemployment to be extended yet again, so that people don't fall deeper into economic abyss. So,
well, keep in mind, the Biden administration has only existed for 6 weeks. For some reason, it
yes.
seems longer than that. I don't know why it seems longer, but it's only been 6 weeks. I think they're off to a fine start. And
Okay.
as I said before, they will have to make adjustments as they go. I mean, obviously, to have had the exclusion of the provision for the increase of the minimum wage to 15 was certainly something that they probably did not think would happen, but here we are. And I think that as there is a more thorough canvassing of the various departments via the cabinet members of the Biden administration to really do an assessment of where things are, that puts them in a better position to know how to deploy resources and personnel. But I think that there will need to be a series of frank conversations about how we not only vaccinate people, but also how we put people back to work in the midst of an economy that's shifted with the emergence of things like future of work and the gig economy, the mechanization and computerization of so many jobs that are being placed into obsolescence, unfortunately, and how we can resuscitate the economy for people who are working low-wage jobs. As I said, disproportionately, Black, brown, and poor people hold those types of work. So it's important for us to be able to understand how we can ensure that they are the center of efforts underway to ensure that people can get access to jobs that pay livable wages.
Okay. So, you talked about, you mentioned, I didn't know that Bernard Jordan had passed. It's a little stunning to me because I'm such a fan of his. So you said, I like what you said, that we should continue to do we should do Bernard Jordan's work. How do we do that? Who's at this table? If you could have people at this table, Dr. Brown, who would we start? Where would we start? Or have we started and now we must fan out?
Well, I think we first have to identify what the goals and objectives are. That's the first thing. And once we've identified what those elements are, we can begin to fill in, because there is a replete amount of human capital and talent around our tables. And once we have designated who those people are going to be, then we have to do the assignment of roles and responsibilities. Because what is going to be necessary is to have a a set of deliverables that can actually be measurable.
But that sounds like what the Black Lives Matter has said. This is what we want to do, right? Like,
no, I think the difference is, I think there's a lot to be said for having bricks and mortar, if you will, and I'm speaking somewhat metaphorically, but what I mean is that there has to be a central, a nerve center, if you will. You might liken it to a think tank where you have a cadre of professionals, you may have lay persons, you may have policymakers who are all working out of this nerve center to ensure that the goals, the objectives of a particular entity are being met. And then also have the data to back up what is done so that there is evidence behind what you are trying to produce. And
so,
I think that,
Dr. Brown, if we have, I mean, we have Urban League, we have NAACP, we have all the sororities and fraternities, we have, I mean, you know, we're not without our own think tanks. We have that. I mean, we have created since our time in this country, since the beginning, we've created entity after entity, organization after organization, and we still find ourselves in these places.
well,
You know what I mean? And I don't say that to cast aspersions. I think they're all necessary. They're all relevant. We need them. I mean, you know, and I'm talking about NAACP. I'm talking about Operation Push. I'm talking about Social Action Network. I'm talking about, you know, all the things that have been created over these years to sort of address, to come together, to address some of the ills that have been plaguing our communities since the beginning.
no, I agree, and this is why I say that it's really the process of becoming unsiloed, and I think sometimes that's a part of what can occur. We can liken it to, let's look at the sections of the state of urban Connecticut. So let's say that the education piece is going to be taken up by the Greek letter organizations. Okay, and I'm just using this as an example. The employment piece is going to be taken up by the National Urban League and its affiliates. The income piece is going to be taken up by perhaps a legal defense fund, if you will.
Okay.
The housing piece is taken up by National Action Network, and so forth and so on. But there is a mandate or a charge that each one of these entities is responsible for shepherding, that is a part of the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is about empowerment of people, communities, and the changing for the better of lives. And so to that end, you may assign a series of tasks to each one of these entities. We already have the organizational wherewithal, but it's about working, I think, more collaboratively and strategically to ensure that the outcomes that we are seeking are actually brought into existence.
That sounds all well and good, Dr. Brown. So how do we get all these people in the room? Do we send out a clarion call? Like, how do we do this?
Well, this can be the beginning of the clarion call, if you like.
Yes.
I mean, no better platform than your show, but I think that we have to be of one mind, and let's be really clear that.
And when you say of one mind, you mean clear, definitive goals, objectives, that kind of thing. Because, you know, as people love to say, we're not monolithic.
No, we're not. And progress is messy. Progress is not linear. It just isn't. And I think people lose sight of that. And I even think that in some ways, you know, the period of the civil rights movement is even romanticized. That was a very tumultuous time, not just externally with regard to what, you know, our foremothers and fathers had to deal with, but also internally. And so we have to be able to understand those types of realities, but also be committed to, we're going to work through it. Now, we may have different ways of looking at the same issue, but in our hearts and mind, the goal for us is the same. We may have different paths to get to that place, but getting there is a unified thread throughout all of the entities that may be a part of this bigger picture. So you may liken it to this. There are, or looking at it as a system. So the system is composed of these interrelated parts. And so these interrelated parts, National Action Network, National Urban League, NAACP, fraternities and sororities, historically Black colleges and universities, each one has a specific role. When each of those entities is performing their role in an ideal fashion, the whole system works more ideally. And that's how you could look at it. It's really the basis of systems theory. But when we are doing that kind of work and facilitating a momentum and progression, we'll get to where we want to go. Mm-hmm. If you look at the work that Stacey Abrams did in Georgia, when she lost the election, and I'm going to put lost in quotes, she didn't pack her things up and go home. What did she do? She went back to work. Mm-hmm. She went back to work. And where are we now? Georgia is a blue state. Who would have thought?
And that was, but that was her plan all along, though. Win or lose, her overarching goal was a blue state.
And the point that I'm making, and you're making my point for me, Babz, because what I'm saying is, in spite of the differences or the variation in points of view, the major question is, what is the bigger picture?
Okay.
What is the bigger picture? Mm-hmm. And if we are in alignment on the bigger picture, then we can work through some of the other things that may confront us. Okay. But we have to be alignment on the bigger picture. And that's what I'm saying.
I see. I just feel like I feel like we're always at the, well, no, I'm not going to say that. I feel like sometimes we find ourselves in this space of again, having these conversations about what we must do. And we have documents and whole pieces and white papers and dissertations on what must be done. And I think we moved the ball down the field, but then something throws us back a few yards. Do you know what I mean? Like, this pandemic is huge and it's catastrophic on a lot of levels. I think people are working in concert. I think everybody has one mind around better quality of life, education, opportunity for us, for our people, for our children, for the generations ahead. I do see that. But there's some other things that we just can't seem to bypass or get around.
What do you think those are?
I mean, I think there's a lot of Black people who are not on the same page with other Black people. I think that's that.
But that's nothing new.
That's nothing new. I think there's not enough of us working for the greater good of a lot of things. I think there is a lot of not so much focused on the community, but more, well, everybody's chasing a dream of their own making, which is fine, and I think that's fair. So I just feel like these little things like that sort of, give us, throw a wrench in the overarching plan.
Well, those
they don't
things don't have to, but I think you have to continue to move in spite of it. It's not going to be perfect. I'm not implying that you think that it should, but those types of challenges are always going to be there. Mm-hmm. And ultimately the question then becomes, and now what are you prepared to do?
I think what I'm saying, Dr. Brown, is, there's so many fights that we have to have personally and in community with each other, with forces out there, that I don't think there's no group of people that has so many barriers to overcome than Black and brown people. I think that's what I really want to say.
Yeah, the barriers are considerable. I mean, yes, they're considerable. And for those who may not be on the same accord with the system of players who are of one mind to bring into existence certain social, economic, and political realities. Then you bid those people well, but you continue to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
You continue to do the work, because otherwise you will expand resources and energy that could be more effectively placed with the mission at hand. And that's how I think you continue to make progress. And the progress may not come as fast as you may like, but it will come.
Okay,
It
so
will come.
here's a case in point. So now we're having these conversations about marijuana being legalized, right, all over this country. Now, federally, it's not going to be legalized, not soon, but all over this country, places are legalizing marijuana. And Connecticut just rolled out what it thinks could work for us in this country. You know, people can't really grow their own pot, but you won't go to jail for having X amount, on your person, and you won't get in trouble for recreational use and that kind of thing. And then people are setting up dispensaries, but yet we still have a lot of our people still sitting in jail with ridiculous amounts of time for selling pot. And do you know what I mean? And they're not going to benefit.
But you know
they're
what?
not going to benefit from. They're not going to benefit
right
from the opportunity to do this legally.
But thank you for saying that, because one of the other entities that would definitely need to be a part of this system of economic empowerment and a higher quality of living would have to be the Equal Justice Initiative, run by fine attorney Brian Stevenson in Alabama.
Mm.
And so again, to your earlier point, we've got the talent, we've got the horsepower, but it's just a matter of mobilizing that horsepower in a collective fashion for, again, the bigger picture and how we determine that bigger picture should be. And the idea of the sentencing guidelines, especially if we're talking about, back in the 1980s and 1990s, the differences in sentencing guidelines for powdered cocaine versus crack, race-based, obviously, but these are all issues that are tethered to policy. And so everything that we do must be in the effort to change the policies that are draconian, that are racist in orientation, so that it helps to promote greater equity.
Now, I had James Foreman Jr. on my show last year, and he wrote a book, Locking Up Our Own. His father was instrumental in the Black Power movement. And he wrote this wonderful book about locking up our own, and how, unwittingly Black people were duplicitous in locking up our folks. And I understand, because I'm a product of the 80s. I came out of college in the 80s. And it's painful to sort of watch, to see all these kids that went to jail, my contemporaries who went to jail for 20, 30 years for drugs, and at the hands of our communities. And I never believed that people said, we hate our people so much that we want to lock them up. I think what they were trying to say was, we just want the drugs out of our communities. And if this is the way to get the drugs out of the community, they had no idea that it would be life sentencing like this. I don't believe that people thought further beyond I just need this out of my community.
Yeah.
And so I think the point that I'm trying to get you to see, or not see, I'm not trying to get you to see anything. I think the point that I'm making is that unwittingly we can be our own enemies in the fight for moving forward.
Well, and I hear what you're saying, Babz. I mean,
and I'm not trying to thwart what you say. I'm just saying,
but
it's a barrier. It's like all these barriers.
No, but there is a psychosocial element to all of this. When you are a part of the people who were enslaved for 246 years and 3 months, you are freed, you are left to your own devices with no type of support, no type of assistance, nothing. And that horror, that trauma is never acknowledged. It is never addressed. So on a cellular level, the horror and trauma of that is passed from generation to generation.
Mhm.
Nested within it is a fair degree of self-hatred that is placed in you by the enslaver and the descendants of the enslavers. And so it is a monumental task to untether yourself from that pathology. And I talk about the idea of getting in your mind so that you can get out of your way.
Mm.
And I think for a lot of Black people still, we are terribly beset by the impact of slavery. We are terribly beset by the way that America continues to treat us. And it is for those reasons that you will find some among us, Babz, who seem just not to get it. It's like, well, how can you think this way? How can you behave this way when this is not doing anything to help our people? And so the question that you raise in some ways is rhetorical, because how could any group of people be exposed to what has been visited upon our ancestors and us and not be terribly impacted by it?
Mm.
To be told that we need to get over it, to be told that, well, that happened a long time ago, it wasn't me, and to be left with the damage, to be left with the not knowing who you may really be all of your life, that exacts a toll on even people who were the first to walk on the face of the earth. It exacts a toll. So we have to be mindful of that. And I'm not making excuses, but I am offering an explanation as to why we see instances of what you have just described.
We're going
Hi,
to take a call. There we go. Call letters.
New Haven, Connecticut. And you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, streaming live at newhavenindependent.org.
And that's where I was trying to get us to, because I think we don't do enough talking about how to free ourselves from the mental slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's for me, Dr. Brown, that is the biggest barrier. Everything else we can get around fast.
Okay.
But I think this mental slavery, and I think I'd like to set this up because our time is coming to an end, but I'd like us to have this conversation, if you will. I mean, it's up to you what we want to talk about next. But I think for me, that is the larger barrier for our freedom and liberation moving forward. The mental slavery that is in us, that is genetically coded into our DNA, of this sense of self-worth. And I hate to use the word hatred, but hatred.
But it is. It is.
So it is.
Let's add another component to the system. We can add medical sociologists. We can also add the Association of Black Psychologists. How about that?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So we've got the material to work with. We've got that.
Yeah.
But I remind you of what the folk in our community who were living at the end of the 19th century into the 20th century had to endure.
Mm-hmm.
When thinking about some of our giants from the past who were confronted with the overt forms of vicious racism, who were able to endure. The thing we must keep in mind, Babz, is that we come from great stuff. And this is why knowing our history before we were brought to these shores is so important. We have to know our history, because without being tethered to our history, we continue to remain vulnerable to some of the ways that history can be reinterpreted. And this is something I'm especially saying to some of your younger viewers, that you have to know your history, the history of Black people didn't start when we were enslaved in this country. It didn't. We invented civilization. We invented language. We invented science. We invented mathematics. Do I need to continue?
No.
So we need to use that as a way of ensuring that we remain right side up rather than upside down.
Okay. I'm with you on that. I think that's a very critical, as I said, for me, that is a very critical piece. As I walk about this country and listen to people and see things and watch things, that's very critical and painful. Very painful.
Yep.
To bear witness to that sort of self-hatred. Yes, and it does need our attention too. So
yeah, but we have each day a new opportunity to make things better than they were before.
Yes.
And that's doing what you can where you can. It matters.
It does.
And it adds up.
It does. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Always a good conversation.
Yeah, yeah. So I hope that you feel a bit more inspired.
I always feel this is why I enjoy talking to you. I believe me, I am a ridiculously romantic optimist. So I have great faith, you know. But I of late, because of this pandemic,
It's been tough.
It has been very tough and painful. And it has pushed my faith to the wall.
Yep.
You know.
And it's done that to a lot of people. You are not alone on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been a tough one. So and I know we are people that will prevail. I have every faith in that. It's just the time in which we will prevail is daunting. So
yeah, these are serious times. One of my outlets is listening to music from the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
like a little Curtis Mayfield.
Well, yeah, that does it for me. I was listening to Earth, Wind and Fire, actually.
Oh, that is my favorite group of all time.
Yeah, and I was listening to George Benson's Unchained Melody. I don't know if you've heard it.
Oh yeah.
But it's one of the most beautiful songs I think ever made. So that helps me, because there are times when it just hits you, and it can come out of the blue. It's like, wow, where did that come from? And it's like, wow, it's an accumulation of the bombardment of living day to day to day. And you see what's happening, and you're almost dumbfounded by it. But you have to remember, who you are and then whose you are, I think.
I like that.
That goes a long way.
Yeah. Before the pandemic, when we were doing the show out of studio, I had a virtual DJ, so I could play music in between, talking to people. I could spend my whole hour playing music and just pontificating off whatever I want to talk about. And so I would always use music as a saving grace. And I would always choose a song, artist of the day, or, whatever would inspire me. It would often be Earth, Wind and Fire, of course, but it would be, all kinds of music, because I listen to all kinds of music. And I don't have, because of this medium, Zoom, we're not allowed to use Zoom that way. So I don't get to play the music that would certainly shift my feelings. So if I'm playing music, it really is for my own personal, So
well, just remember that the music is in here. Yeah. So you can always capture it, and I know we're dating ourselves, so be it. But the music of the 70s was just different. It was just, it made you feel good. It was inspiring.
It's very positive. Like people weren't singing foolishness.
Yeah.
If somebody loved you, they were singing about they loved you.
Yeah.
If they were singing about community, they were singing about the uplift of community.
Right.
I mean, like if it was struggle, they were singing about struggle, and we all understood it. Yes.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Thank you. Always good to be with you.
Always good to be with you. And don't worry, everybody. He will be back for as long as he wants to come back. And we'll be talking about we'll have another topic. So today was income and inequality. And I think you tied it up. I think you tied it up beautifully. So thank you for that. And
you're welcome.
Have a good week.
Okay, you as well.
All right.
All right, I'll see you soon. All right.
Harry, where you at? Oh, see, this would be the time where I would play Fight the Power. Harry, Vernon Jordan passed away. Do you know Vernon Jordan?
Yes, I was just reading it.
You know, I'm a huge fan of Vernon Jordan. I got to work with him, Harry, many years ago when I was a young woman. You know, Harry, he was my first political crush, my first political power crush. He's a very attractive man, Harry. You know, he's tall, dark skinned, and well dressed. Like
Yeah,
Vernon
I think
Jordan was well dressed.
the first time I saw him, he was advising the Clintons
Yes,
on something.
they were. He was longtime friends of theirs. I think from the governor days. I think maybe before the governor days. I don't think they were in law school together, but I would see him on Martha's Vineyard too. But I had a chance to work with him in my days when I was always running back and forth between New York, and he's such an elegant man, You know, I remember I made my son when he was in high school. I made him read Vernon Can Read, his book. I made him read his book. I don't know if he actually really read it. Oh, well, you know. Yes. Oh, song of the day, Harry. I think Dr. Brown gave it to me. Unchained Melody by George Benson. I think that'd be the song of the day. I think that would be the song of the day. If you find it. If you don't worry about it. I'm not here tomorrow, Harry. You know that, right? I go and have my pre-op.
Yeah,
I went to the doctors yesterday. They didn't like my heart, but I see my cardiologist at the end of the week because, you know, all these little things can shut down your surgery. It's like, you know, I don't need this headache. Y'all gonna operate. I don't give a damn if I have to come to your house and jump on your dining room table.
What kind of disrespect was that? They don't like your heart. Tell them you got a good heart.
But you know, when they do the EKG, Harry, and it's like not acting right, you know. I was like, heart, don't fail me now. Don't fail me now. So yeah, so he died. Mr. Jordan died yesterday. He was 85 years old. Yeah, his daughter Vicky Jordan announced it. They didn't say what he died of. I mean, but 85, what does it matter? You know, he's such an elegant man. I agree. You can't talk about Vernon Jordan and not say elegance. I mean, you just can't. Such an elegant man. So anyway, Harry, to the show. I'll talk more about Mr. Vernon once I find out what they're gonna do, the arrangements, and the show, Harry. Debris. So you're gonna watch it?
Yeah. See, we don't watch anything live. We wait till the weekend to watch the shows.
Okay.
Or throughout the week, because there's so many shows that we record. So we might pick one show a night to catch up on, and then in the weekend we catch up on everything.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I watched it last night because I was flipping through the channels and I saw it. So it wasn't like I knew it was coming on. I just happened to be flipping through. I was looking through the guide and I was looking for, because I knew The Good Doctor was a repeat. So I was like, so I wasn't racing to watch a repeat of that. And the other show was a repeat too, All Rise. So I was like, well, what am I gonna watch? And so I saw the show on NBC, and so here's the premise, Harry. When a mysterious wreckage starts falling from the sky, a secretive international agency is tasked with figuring out what it is where it came from, and most importantly, what it can do. British agent Finola Jones and American agent Brian Beneventi are partners who have very different styles. She's warm, intuitive, and detail-oriented, Black. She's a Black woman. And he's charming, confident, and guarded. He's a white guy. However, they have no choice but to trust each other as they track down the hundreds of pieces of debris scattered across the Western Hemisphere. Each fragment has an unpredictable, powerful effect on everyday people who find it, changing their lives in unexpected and often dangerous ways. Every discovery is also a race against time because shadowy outside forces want these powerful objects for their own nefarious purposes. Together, Finola and Brian will uncover a new mystery and the truth unfolds piece by piece. Harry, this is our show, Harry. This is everything that we've been talking about.
Now, keep in mind, there is conspiracy now that some people think the COVID virus came from space, and it is something that sort of an alien virus.
All right.
That's one of the conspiracies out in the conspiracy world.
Okay. I'm not going. I don't argue with conspiracy theories unless they're, really ridiculous.
And then you have like the rover on Mars that's collecting Mars rocks and all of that stuff that are going to be sent back home. Is it possible that foreign or alien entities, any type of virus can come over with those rocks, right?
Oh, well, then the debris is going to be a show for you, Harry, because it's got all the stuff that we like to talk about. It's got intrigue. It's got talented people. It's got alien stuff. It's got space. It's got white supremacy foolishness. It's got that. And Harry, and government, which is a prescription for, drama. So in the end, at the very end of the last night's episode, you see them collecting the debris. You see what they're doing. You see it, and you're like, oh shoot, which makes sense on one level, Harry. It makes sense, but we know.
Well,
I can't wait till you see it so we can talk more about it.
This is sort of predictive programming, right?
Yes. I knew you was going to say that.
Yeah, so they're
getting us ready, Harry. Harry, they're getting us ready. Because debris has been falling,
Yeah.
Debris has been falling and they can't account for it. And what did they say, Harry? There's a species, a bug on this planet that does not belong on this planet. What is it?
Well, the octopus.
Yes.
Is
the octopus, Harry.
Is one thing that they have no.
They can't figure out what it's attached to. Like everything has a cousin. It's evolved from something. The octopus ain't got no peoples, no family, no bloodline.
The octopus keeps evolving. It keeps getting smarter. So yeah. And when you think about it, right, the aliens people have claimed to have seen, the little grays and stuff like that, they could be the cousin of an octopus, right? I mean, you don't know. They could be the evolution of the octopus. Who knows? But when you take it into what's happening now, when you kind of look at what's happening now and then look at the possibilities of the show, you have to tell yourself, come on. I mean, airline pilot just saw a
I know,
ship.
Harry. And then wait, and so now they treat him like he crazy. He's like, listen, I'm flying. Wait, so I love this. This is my favorite thing. Did y'all see that? Did you hear Harry? He was like,
Yeah.
whoa, did y'all see that? And they were like, see what? He's like, y'all didn't see that.
Right. And the thing is that he's not crazy.
He's not crazy.
He's actually talking about something that United States Air Force pilots have seen recently. Okay,
But
so
but it's not showing up on the tracking tools, like it's not showing up. I was like, duh, it's not gonna, because these life forms are gonna have better technology.
right. They don't always show up on radar.
Right.
So and they'll suddenly show up out of nowhere on radar. So you only see them when they allow you to see them.
Yes, that's my point, Harry, that their technology is such that they're like, well, I love the way when you hear the recording, Harry, he goes, did you see that?
Yeah, and you should hear some of the recordings that that the military people have. It's the same thing. They're like, what? Where did that come from? Look at that. And then they've actually witnessed it drop from 30,000 feet to the surface of the water in less than 5 seconds. Impossible. It's against physics.
Well, physics on Earth.
Right, physics on Earth. Yeah.
Oh, physics in this dimension, Harry. But I just love that. So now I'm trying to did they shuffle him away, Harry? They're like, you know what?
Yeah.
You need a long vacation, you and your family. We'll send you to Bali for 6 months. Y'all go enjoy yourself on our dime. Don't trouble your little self about any of this. Go relax, take it easy. You know,
well, it's a new world.
Crazy.
It's a new world when it comes to stuff like that, right? Because you've had witness testimony of military showing up, or FBI or the Men in Black showing up and telling you forgot what you just saw, and if you don't, you may end up dead somewhere.
Yeah,
so that's how they used to do it. Now it's like, please don't post it on your Instagram.
Yeah, because they don't have time. You can get to your social media before they have time to kill you, Harry.
Yeah.
They ain't got poison fast enough when you hit that send, when you hit that post. They don't got that. These phones are like their own little, So yeah, so they don't want to draw any attention.
And by the way, Rocket Man keeps showing up on the California coast, the guy who's floating around in his rocket pack. They've seen him at 10 and 20,000 feet. That's insane. So it's
he's gonna accidentally get shot down.
He could be Iron Man, right?
He's gonna accidentally get shut down.
But I mean, so there's strange things happening in our skies right now, and I've seen weird things.
I did when I was a kid, Harry, and this is what made me start being fascinated with space exploration. And in 1975, I must have been, I had to be 12, I think. 12. Yeah, I was 12. And I remember seeing a UFO in the night skies. And I've been fascinated ever since. An honest to God UFO. And, like a craft.
Yeah.
And it just changed what I believed in those moments. I never forgot that. And I always had this sense of other, there's some otherness out there. I never believed that we were the only. I never believed that.
Yeah.
I never believed that, Harry. It makes no sense to believe that. All these planets that we know to be planets, and we are the only life force out there? No, that can't be right.
Some of the smartest people in our history have believed it. Okay. And they would have to hide it just because it was taboo to talk about it in public. So, I mean, when I was young, I lived on the 12th floor of the project in Brooklyn, and I would look towards Manhattan, and I would always see lights darting around. You know,
Okay.
and they were strange. They used to dart around the sky in weird patterns. And then when I took my daughter to college she went to Maine, the University of Maine, and we saw weird
Is that where your
lights.
daughter graduated from, University of Maine?
She, I'm not sure. I don't think it's the University of Maine. There was another one. It was in Bangor or something. I don't know.
That's Maine. That's Maine.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah. So we saw lights, weird lights in the sky when we were driving home. I went to pick her up, and it was like, what the hell is that? And it would come close, then it would dart, and then take off, and then it would come back. I'm like, well, it's not a star because a star can't do that. It's not a shooting star because shooting stars don't come back.
Harry, I think we were destined to do this show.
Right? So
I think we were destined to meet and do this show so we could have this conversation.
And my daughter was sitting in the seat going,
did you see that?
You saw that, right? You saw that. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy, right? She kept saying,
no, you're not crazy.
I'm not crazy. And I'm like, no, but we know, it could be swamp gas. I joked, because that's
Harry, we were destined to do this show. We were destined to meet and have this conversation at this particular moment, at this particular time. I'm convinced, Harry. Aren't you?
The government always used to, in the 1960s, they used to always blame it on swamp gas, even though you didn't.
Is that what it was?
On the swamp.
My favorite ones was, they were doing maneuvers.
Yeah, or
I like that they were doing maneuvers.
Or the weather balloons that they used to.
Oh yes, the weather. I was like, damn, they got a lot of weather balloons. Yes, but that guy was like, did you see that?
Look, the most recent sighting that I've had, we were flying to Florida. I was on JetBlue. I was at the window seat. Karen was next to me, and she's like, close the window, And I'm like, nah, I'm looking outside. And all of a sudden, something goes, darts right under the wing. And I was like, yeah, I'm not closing the window now because I saw something. And she's like, you saw something? Really? And when we landed in Florida, there were UFO sightings.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, because I saw something. And it darted something metallic right under the wing. I'm like, there's no way they allow planes to get this close to each other.
I don't know, Harry. I think I had to put my blinder down. Ain't nothing you could do up that high. Like, I don't need to see.
I know, but and I was thinking of is it Twilight Zone where the guy's on the wing?
Oh.
The monsters on the wing.
The gremlins.
Were on the wing.
And they were like,
yeah. I'm like, I can see myself climbing out to the wing. But yeah, so I've had some weird experiences.
Me too, Harry. I've never talked about them to people. This is the first time in my life that I've actually talked about that UFO that I saw when I was a kid. And I've seen some since. So, yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, and there's been times where my daughter tells me there was a light on my window all night. Did you see what was going on? I said, no, but because our condo, she's towards the back of the house. My room is towards the front of the house. So I'm like, no, but I saw the light too all night just on. And I would look up, but it was something above. And she's like, I'm telling you, those main aliens, They're tracking us.
Yes, they found a friend in you. They
Because
found
where's
a
that
friend
light
in
coming
you.
from?
They found a friend. Oh, Harry. So that means they've been following me too, because I've seen. Okay, Harry. So Harry, if we get beamed up, we stick together.
And sometimes when Karen and I go out, as we're walking towards the door, I go, yeah, that's not a star that's normally in the sky. That's not, it's something different. She's like, oh, so you know the sky. I said, I know this sky. I'm always looking up to see if there's something different. But yeah, so yeah, I'm kind of, like the X-Files, I believe. What's the line in the X-Files? I think I want to believe. But people frown on the whole alien story stuff, and I'm sure Paul is probably laughing about it right now, but not texting us that we're weird. But people frown on it. But what's the difference for me? What's the difference between an alien and you believing in God?
Okay, that's a little.
There's no difference.
No, it's different.
No, there's no difference.
No,
especially since Jesus said, I'm not from this world. That makes him an alien, right? So you're probably worshiping an alien. More, as a matter of fact, you are worshiping an alien. He is not from this world.
I think when he said, I'm not from this world, meaning I have no desire to sort of be caught up in the trappings of this world. I don't value the things that you value. Being not of this world does not mean.
But he got caught up, Babz.
He doesn't mean physically of this world. He means, of all the trappings of this world. That's what that means.
No, I'm gonna.
I don't value the things that y'all value.
I'm gonna connect everything in the Bible to my alien obsession here, because so many people who are Christians mock people who believe in the Bible. But you have Ezekiel, who saw a fiery vehicle come down, land, and he got. And you have Enoch, who got taken up in a vehicle.
No, Harry, I'm not. Listen, I don't need to liken the two to believe. I think it all is believable, and it is all it all belongs. The Bible is people's experience of God. So if those are their experiences, if you believe that, as I do, I believe the Bible and all of these religious scriptures are people's experience of God, not necessarily God speaking to them, not God offering dictation, but people's experience of God. So I'm all for that.
You have Moses on the mountain going up to meet an alien craft.
Harry, you're not going to. That's just too. That's a very small. That's very narrow. To me.
But believing in God is very narrow.
No.
That's a very.
I mean, I think what happens is when you try to lump religion and alien exploration, the Bible is limited in terms of how you allow your mind to wander. Space exploration and alien, all of that is a bigger deal and much more attractive to me. The Bible and religious expression is all about making you a better person and the cultivation of humanity as we know it. Space exploration is what's out there on the horizon. What else is out there? That has nothing to do with people's faith, because if you meet other people out there, they will have a whole different kind of vibe about beliefs and all of that. So
absolutely.
So it just seems very.
One of those aliens are going to be named Jesus. So,
but that's just such a small conversation to have.
I know.
Have a bigger conversation.
What I'm doing is I'm connecting it for.
But that's a small connecting.
Those who look down their nose at people.
Why? Why are you worried about that? Like, Harry, who cares?
Because that's my job.
I look down on people who
Hypocrisy
eat
is my job.
snails.
To
Why do you
knock
want to
down
eat
the
snails?
hypocrisies of man is my job.
Oh
It's
my
my
God,
mission.
Harry. You know what? Then you need to get another job because
It's my mission.
you need another job. You're gonna drive yourself crazy doing this
No,
job.
because I'm one who loves to debate the Bible and all of that stuff. So
But that's just such a, I don't know. I just find that
it's
all
just fun stuff.
small.
It's
That's just
fun
small.
stuff when you're dealing with faith over facts. So all of it, when it's just a belief system, it's all theoretical and nothing's proven. So
I just,
one theory isn't more valid than the other theory.
okay, Harry, that's fine. But so what? But that doesn't get into the. I mean, that's very limited, and you're playing on a small field when you wanna just like use it just for that purpose. I'm over here trying to
disagree.
figure out the codes and the connections to how many other universes are out there, how many galaxies are out there, what else is beyond the beyond the beyond. That's where I'm at. I'm firm in my faith. I love the mysticism of the Bible. I love the mystery of the Bible. I love the contradictions of the Bible. It's fine. I love it. It doesn't. I don't need to prove it or disprove it. I'm fully. I believe that mysticism and facts can live next door to each other, can even be married to each other. So
Well,
I don't need to. I don't have anything to prove or disprove on the religious front. That's not my. I don't have that. I don't have that fight. That's for me. That's not a good use of my intellect or my time. But what I do enjoy is I love space. I love space exploration. I love thinking about the beyond, the beyond, the beyond. I do. I love it. Um, when I was a kid, I remember when Star Wars came out as books, I remember reading the Star Wars books because I was just so fascinated by, thinking about other galaxies and other life forms. And Star Wars brought it to me in a very real way. And with a good dose of good versus evil. I mean, what's the story without good versus evil? I love it. You got to have some of that. But that's fine. But I just love this idea that we are not alone. Is that's the tag for what is it? What's the other extraterrestrial with the music? They had a music sequence and you could talk to the spaceship. What is it? The third, what is it? What is the other show, Harry, where they have a whole song?
The movie,
Yes.
the movie with Richard Dreyfuss,
Yes.
Dimensions of the Third Kind, something like
No,
that.
yeah. Something of the third kind. Something.
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about? It had a whole musical
yeah.
sequence. I love that stuff. And of course, E.T., but E.T. phone home.
Well, a lot of that stuff, Steven Spielberg actually got some classified information on a lot of these movies that he made. He was in contact with people in the know when he was making those movies, so it's pretty cool.
I like it. I love space movies. There's not a space movie that I have not seen that I did not enjoy. Even the boring ones, even the ridiculous ones. Listen, Harry, I actually dug Aliens
Close
versus
Encounters,
Predator.
Close Encounters,
Yes, Close Encounters of the Third
Close
Kind.
Encounters of the Third Kind.
I love that with that music. Doo, 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 doo. Listen, Harry, I loved Alien versus Predator. Did you see that? Did you see that? With the very
Yeah,
talented Sanaa Lathan. Remember she was in that? Remember her, Harry? She was in there fighting the aliens.
yeah.
She didn't die. Yes, Close Encounters of the Third Kind with Roy Schneider and Richard Dreyfuss and no, not Roy Schneider. Richard Dreyfuss. Is
Richard
he still
Dreyfuss.
alive, Harry?
Yeah, he
I
is.
think he is. Yeah.
He has these cool videos on civics. Um, yeah, he's pretty weird but pretty cool at the same time.
Yeah. So I liked Alien. I like even the ones even when they got ridiculous. I liked Alien, the movie. Like I like that. Like I like sci-fi monster movies. I like listen, I'm a huge Godzilla fan, right? You can't get more sci-fi than Godzilla. I love Godzilla. I love what else? Oh, I love all these little space movies. I remember when I watched um, um, the very boring space movie where the computer was the thing, it took over everything, and they were trying to deal with it. Space Odyssey. Is it Space Odyssey? Is that what it was called? Space Odyssey, a Space Odyssey. You know what I'm talking about? With Hal the computer.
2001 Space
Yes,
Odyssey.
2001 A Space Odyssey. I actually read that book too, Harry, when I was a kid. I read that book. I actually enjoy this movie now more than I did when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, it was just long and boring. It's like, I don't understand any of this. But you know what, Harry? There's a sci-fi movie, a space movie coming out called, is it Chaos Walking? It was made 4 years ago, Harry. And they're just now going to release it. And it is a mashup, Harry, of Star Wars and well, it's from the same vein of Star Wars. It's a 2021 American science fiction adventure film, but they made this film a while back. But they're going to release it, so it's going to get released for 2021. So it's based on a sci-fi trilogy. I'm looking, but it's got David Oyelowo, who I love. I can't wait to see it, but that looks like it's going to be good. So it's got Daisy Ridley, it's got Tom Holland, it's got some other. Oh, and it's got Cynthia Erivo. We like her. We like her. So I'm gonna see that, but that's coming. Let's see. Yeah, I love a sci-fi film. I just love them. You know why? Because they always have good gadgets. I know what else I need them to make, Harry? I need to make another Star Trek. Is that George Benson? Oh no, that's it. And Harry, everybody's band had to play that. Remember that? Remember every band? Did you play an instrument when you were a kid?
The clarinet.
Did you, Harry? You played the clarinet? Oh my God.
Yeah.
How far did you play? Do you still have it?
No, I wasn't good. I was forced to play. One of those things.
Can you read music?
No, I wasn't very
So if you could have picked an instrument, what would you have picked?
I would have
what did you wanted to play?
I would have wanted to play the piano.
Oh, I could see that.
But yeah, there's no buying a piano.
I know, but you could have got a keyboard, Harry.
That's true. No, but
my kids had a piano. They learned. I had a piano. My girlfriend left her piano when she moved to California, and when she moved to Washington, rather. And so my kids learned on her piano. Then 10 years later, she finally came and got it.
It was more of a forced thing, You had to
play something.
And so the teacher, and I wouldn't choose, so the teacher chose.
My God, you was that obstinate. Did you actually learn to play it though? Did you learn a song?
No,
You know,
I
did
learned
you?
how to play pieces of a song,
Okay.
um, but by ear, I didn't know how to read the. I wouldn't take the time to learn how to read the music.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah,
Oh.
I was a pain back then, so there was no
Some
teaching
things
Harry.
never change. That's just the way it is.
That's right. There was no teaching Harry anything he did not want to learn. So
Well, it's never too late. You can take a clarinet lessons online.
actually, I've thought about the guitar or
The
something
guitar
like
is hard, Harry. Remember I told you I started the pandemic playing the guitar, and my fingers started to hurt, so I dropped it. My daughter's guitar is sitting right across from me right now. I'm gonna take it up. I think, Harry, I have to be in a class with somebody. I'm not good at doing it online. Do you know what I mean? Like it was just too.
that.
I'm tactile. I need somebody to, like, no, put your fingers this way, do this, do that. So I didn't do well. I was in for a few weeks, and then my fingers were hurting. I was like, I don't like this anymore. Then I was like, I'm a grown ass woman. I don't have to keep this up. I can stop it. My mother's dead. She's making me do this. And then once I
Yeah,
realized how I could stop, I was like, I can just quit.
it all seems like fun, and then I've signed up for online stuff too, and it's like, oh my god, the learning process puts me to sleep.
Well, I
So
think
it's
for me,
like,
the
whoa.
guitar online was hard. I mean, I enjoyed listening to the guy teach, and I could go back and rewind stuff when I wanted to, like, do you know what I mean, Harry? Like when I wanted to learn, if I didn't get it, I could just rewind it back. And it was quite enjoyable. And this particular guitar school this music school was offering these lessons. It's a famous place. I can't think of what it is, and they sell guitars and all that, and they sell all the equipment. But they offered, I don't know, like 6 weeks of free classes. So I signed up. And I really enjoyed the instruction. And Margot was very helpful because
Well, yeah,
she's a guitar player. So she was very helpful to me.
it was years ago. I had bought a guitar that came with like 6 lessons.
Hmm.
Um,
I can see you playing a guitar.
and I ended up giving it away. I just couldn't get into it was just the thought of playing a guitar was better than actually playing the guitar.
Yes, you like the idea of a guitar. You didn't like the reality
Yeah,
of a guitar.
right. So I
I
ended
can
up
see
giving it away,
I
and
can see you in a coffee house, Harry, on a Sunday playing some Puerto Rican folk songs.
yeah, I mean that was the idea, right?
Come in there, order me a
uh,
cafe Bustela.
the idea was of being able to just chill alone playing the guitar. I was thought to myself, how wonderful would that be?
It would be. You still could do it, Harry. When the world opens back up, though, I'm gonna. I had went to the neighborhood music school to sign up for guitar lessons. That's what I had, and that was what I initially wanted to do. But when the pandemic hit, they shut everything down. And then I was online and I saw this class being offered, and so I signed up for it for free. Um, but I want to do it. I think I'm better if I have my teacher in front of me rather than online. Although I did enjoy the online instruction, you know.
My thing was that my fat fingers, they didn't sound like they were supposed to sound. Like you're getting the lesson and they're telling you, it's supposed to sound like this. Is yours sounding like this? And I would always go, no, it's not sounding like that. So it was just, I don't know, I can't get it. You're right. Probably with somebody there, actually helping you through it is different than learning online is really difficult. It's
Yeah,
really difficult
yeah,
because
yeah.
nothing sounds the same.
But the class is so good, Harry. I love the one-on-one instruction online. It was really better than I imagined. right? And then they have all the other little classes. They had like other little tutorials that could help you work on like one specific thing if you were stuck. You know what I mean? Like, so if you didn't know they had a thing for the fingers, like if you want to, so it was all of that. And I enjoyed it so much. I think what I would rather do is take the class in person and then use that as my follow-up, like when I'm home kind of thing. So yeah, I enjoyed that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like this is gonna sound horrible. I know, especially to you. It's sort of like watching a movie. It's sort of like watching a movie and then reading.
No, don't say it with subtitles.
No, and then
Like
reading the book. Right.
Oh.
So like I can't read the book. It's I'm not into the book, but so you know what I do? I go and I watch the movie, and then somehow the book kind
Comes
of
alive. Okay. All right. That's not so bad. That's not. I thought you was gonna say it was like watching a movie with subtitles.
And by the way, Dupin, is that the name of it?
Lupin. Yes.
Lupin. I actually watched the first episode.
You did? Did you like it?
In English. I didn't have to read anything. They actually have the choice of French or English.
Oh, do they? Where is that at?
The audio.
Really? I need to go
On,
look then. Is this on like Netflix or something, right? Or Hulu or Amazon? I don't know. It's on one of them.
Yeah, it's one of the services. Karen and I watched the first episode, and I was complaining the whole time before I started. I'm like, I'm gonna watch it. Babz said I should watch it. I said, Babz said I should watch it. I'm gonna try to go read through it, and I went to the subtitles to choose English, and it said audio, English or French, and I'm like, what?
Oh, I didn't even think to do that, Harry. I just watched it with the subtitles. Oh, now I'll go back and watch the whole damn thing all over again.
I was like, yes, okay, Harry? I can get into this.
Thank you. You should have texted me like, you can watch this and you can listen to it. But did you like it? It's a good show, right?
Yeah, it is.
You gotta watch it. You gotta watch it play out, Harry. Like you gotta watch it unfold. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah.
So, all right. I know we gotta go. Time for us to take a break. Okay, so I'm not here tomorrow, Harry. Tomorrow's Wednesday. So you're gonna have to play 2 shows. And but I'll be back Thursday, Harry. And guess who's on Thursday? Chief.
Well, here's the thing. Before we
Chief
get
Tony
into that,
Tony Reyes.
No, wait. Before you get into that, tomorrow Babz is off. So it's gonna be LoveBabz, LoveTalk Politics with Harry.
Okay,
I guess it's not. I guess it's not. I tried, people, you see?
What happens when you go away? the mice and the cats and the dogs will play. Lord have mercy. This is what's going to be like when I'm gone for 2 weeks. So, all right. Then I'll see you Thursday. Chief Reyes is going to be, this is his last week, Harry. So I will see him. He'll be on with us Thursday. And then we'll have a good conversation. So he'll be on. I don't have anybody behind me, Harry, so I could talk to him as long as he could stand it. We'll see what happens. At least a good 45 minutes. So yeah. All right. Have a good one.
All right. So we're see when you get music from. I'm trying to do my. There you go. I was waiting for the someone to continue.
What is this? Is this George Benson?
Unchained Melody.
Yes.
Well, at least the first 45 seconds.
Okay. Thank you.
darling, I've hungered for your touch. A long, lonely time